Hi folks, thanks for joining me today on Naturally Curious UK. It's August Bank Holiday weekend and I'm down at Dagenham Chase to the east of London near Romford, and I've been having a wander around trying to identify some of the plant life here on this reserve with the help of an app on my smartphone called Seek. That's been my primary mission. My secondary mission has been to keep my eyes open for a species of spider called the Wasp spider, one that I've not seen before, but stick with us, let's have a look and see how I got on, shall we? In recent months I've become increasingly aware that my knowledge of the plant life I see when I'm out and about is shamefully deficient. When I visited Trafford Gorge with my lovely friend John Paul earlier this year, I was able to pick his brains about the plants we saw. With his background in teaching bushcraft, his knowledge of our natural flora is excellent. Out on my own here though, I'm resorting to a different source of knowledge. I was tipped off about the Seek app by Mike Fuller, who runs a nature photography group I belong to. It's available for Android and iPhone and was created by the iNaturalist team. iNaturalist being a joint initiative of the California Academy of Sciences and the National Geographic Society. I've used it on the odd occasion in the past, but this was the first time I'd made any sort of heavy use of it. The first thing I pointed the Seek app at was this cluster of spherical galls on a small oak tree. Seek identified the species in question as the common spangled gall wasp. Observing these strange raised spots on the underside of one of the leaves on the same tree, I pointed the Seek app at those too, and it came back with the same species identification. It turns out that oak trees play host to several gall-inducing wasps. I think the Seek app misidentified the larger spherical galls. Maybe my aim was a bit off. I believe they're the work of the oak marble gall wasp, Andricus colari. However, I believe the app was correct with the ID of the small galls on the underside of the leaf, being indeed those of the common spangled gall wasp, Neuroterus quercus bacarum. But hang on, I hear you say. All this talk of wasps when I thought your primary mission here was to identify the plant life on the reserve. Very true, very true. So let's crack on with some plant life, shall we? The next species to come under the scrutiny of the Seek app was this low, bushy, herbaceous plant with lemon yellow flowers. I didn't know what it was, but Seek identified it as common toadflax, an ID which I've subsequently found no reason to disagree with. Next up was this leggy, pink-flowered waterside plant, which Seek seemed to have no trouble in identifying as purple loose strife, another new ID for me. The next one was one I'd forgotten I knew. As soon as Seek ID'd it as Birdsfoot Trefoil, I thought, oh yeah, I should have known that one. I think the problem was that I didn't look at it properly and engage my brain. Just goes to show you shouldn't necessarily let computers do the work your brain can do. The next flower I came across was one I needed no help in identifying, seeing as we have a perennial example of it in our garden. Peeping up through the bramble runners and showing a distinctive seed pod, this wild sweet pea has an attractive pink flower, but unlike its cultivated cousins, has little or no fragrance. Despite being primarily focused on plants for this visit, that didn't mean I was oblivious to the other natural goings-on around me. On the Burdock Lake there were good numbers of swallows and sand martins hawking over the water, stocking up for their southbound migration in the coming weeks. Okay, let's pick up the pace a bit and rattle through these next few, else we'll be here all day. I think most of these are trustworthy IDs, but do let me know in the comments below if you disagree. This one was identified as hawkweed oxtongue. this one as Horseradish, which I did recognise from our time on my father-in-law's allotment some years back. And this one is common mugwort. Greater burdock. This common yarrow is one I was already familiar with too. And then this next one, which I think is a wrong un. Seek has identified it as Chinese silvergrass, when in fact I'm pretty sure it's the common reed, Phragmites australis. In Seek's defence though, if you scroll down the species page for the Chinese silvergrass, it does list common reed first in the list of similar species. Right, 4 more plant species to go, starting with perennial wall rocket, alfalfa. For some reason I always thought that was just a food crop grown in Africa, but apparently not. This is great willow herb. And last, but most certainly not least, Himalayan Balsam, also known as Indian Balsam. This is an incredible plant. It's an introduced and invasive species which has become common along the banks of rivers and streams. Part of the trouble is that it dies back in the winter, leaving the banks exposed, unstable and prone to erosion from flooding. The Wildlife Trust's website has this to say about it. Himalayan Balsam was introduced as a garden plant in 1839, but soon escaped and became widely naturalised along riverbanks and ditches, especially close to towns. It is fast growing and spreads quickly, invading wet habitat at the expense of other native flowers. Its explosive seed pods aid its spread by sending the seeds into the river, causing further dispersal downstream. Our largest annual plant, it flowers from July to October. I mentioned in the intro to this video that, as well as my primary mission of identifying the plant life on the reserve, my secondary mission was to keep a lookout for wasp spiders, a species I'd hitherto not seen. Despite checking out many likely looking spots in the long grass, I was drawing a very firm blank. Until, that is, I was very nearly back at the car park. I decided to check one last place, below the wind turbine next to the visitor centre, and bingo, a female wasp spider obligingly positioned in the middle of her web. Well, I say obligingly. It would have been better if she had had her stripy dorsal aspect towards me, rather than the less boldly patterned ventral aspect. I wasn't able to get a view of the dorsal aspect due to the surrounding vegetation, but hey, that did me for a first sighting. If you want to learn more about this amazing spider, then do check out episode 24 of the UK Wildlife Podcast, hosted by Victoria Hillman and my friend Neil Phillips. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Right, well that about wraps things up for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video or learnt something useful or interesting from it, then don't forget to click the thumbs up and share a link to it with your friends and on social media. As always though, whatever you're up to, do keep enjoying the wonders of nature where you are.